All right. Chapter 7, text 5. But before we get started, I'll recap a little bit. So Krishna told Arjun that I'm going to share with you the knowledge of the spiritual kind and the material kind. What are the material and the spiritual world made up of? So initially, Krishna mentioned about the material world in text 4, that Bhumir, Apo, Anala, Vayu, earth, water, fire, air, ether, right? That's what all the material world is made up of. And then we got in the purport where we discussed about the 24 elements that make up the different material things, so separated elements. Just like we have the periodic table, according to the Vedic system, there is the what's a thing called Sankhya philosophy. There's a Sankhya philosophy through which empirically it is determined the different separated energies of the Lord. And now text 5 we'll read. Somebody wants to read text 5? Really? Okay, I'll read. Apareyam itastva anyam prakritim vidhi me param jiva bhutam mahabaho yayedam dharyate jagat. Besides these, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mine, which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of material inferior nature. So Krishna mentions there's two kinds of energies. There's superior energy, there's inferior energy. Superior energy is us, the jivas, the living entities who are conscious beings. And the inferior energy is the material energy, the dull matter that doesn't doesn't have consciousness. So superior energy exploits inferior energy. Exploits doesn't mean in the negative sense of the word exploit. It basically means we utilize the jivas, us, conscious beings, are utilizing material energy for our sustenance and survival, right? So that is what's being spoken about. So there is para prakriti and apara prakriti, just like there is paramatma. So the word para means superior and apara means inferior. So para prakriti is spiritual energy, apara prakriti means material energy. So para prakriti, us, we lord it over material energy. In the purport, it is said it is clearly mentioned that the living entities belong to the superior nature or energy of the Supreme Lord. The inferior energy is matter manifested in different forms, namely earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, in ego. Both forms of material energy or material nature, namely gross earth and subtle mind, are products of inferior energy. So important thing to note here, sometimes we think mental things are spiritual. When people have drugs, sometimes they have a hallucinogenic experience, right? Which they sometimes think is a spiritual experience, ganja or whatever else. It's not spiritual. It is a material experience, a mental experience. There's a huge difference between mental and spiritual. Unfortunately, those who don't know para prakriti and apara prakriti tend to think anything that is subtle is spiritual. It is not. Subtle, apara prakriti can also be subtle, which is the mind, intelligence, and ego. Subtler than that is the soul, which is para prakriti or superior nature. So if somebody is artistic or somebody is musically inclined, they're strong on the mental aspect, right? The subtle aspect is very strong. That doesn't mean it's spiritual. That still means it's material. It's part of material unless it is used for spiritual purposes. So for example, a jharu that is used on the altar, on the altar where the deity's worship is happening. You take a clean bath, you wear clean clothes before you touch that jharu. It's still a jharu that you use for cleaning. But because it is used on the altar, because it is used for a higher purpose, for Radha and Krishna, one takes a shower, one wears clean clothes before touching that jharu, because it is spiritual in nature. It is something that is used for spiritual purposes. So it is given that reverence. right? In Jagannath Rath Yatra, those of you know, the king personally comes every year before the Rath moves. There's a golden broom, a broom with a golden handle. The jharu has a golden handle, and the king personally jharufies the chariot, all around the chariot, before Lord Jagannath starts on his journey. Act of humility. And that jharu is, heavily respected because it's used for the glorification of the Lord. So it's important to understand all things can be spiritualized, right? Like the microphone. Same microphone can be used for making people agitated, and the same microphone can be used for giving Bhagavad Katha. One spiritual purpose, the other is material purpose. So material things, apara prakriti, can be spiritualized when it's connected in service to Krishna. So this body, although apara prakriti, it can be spiritualized when we used the tongue to accept prasadam, to chant the holy name of the Lord, to in the heart, right? We invite Krishna to reside in the heart. We use our body for serving Krishna and his devotees. So all of these spiritualizes the body. As a result, you will see great saints in the Vedic tradition. Their bodies are not buried, or their bodies are not burnt, but they're buried. That's why. So if you go to South India, especially, all the Madhvacharyas and all the Vaishnava great saints in that line, they have samadhis, they call it. What is a samadhi? The great saint, their body is put in a yoga posture, and they're buried in sitting yoga posture, and they cover it with dirt, and on top of that they build a temple around it. So that is considered samadhi, because the body has been used in service to Krishna so much that it has been spiritualized, and it has spiritual potency, and it is honored and revered by burying it rather than burning it. So even though material, same pus, mucus, urine, etc., all of that everybody's body is made up of, because this body has been used in service to the Lord, it is given that respect, that it has been spiritualized. Same thing with the temple, same bricks, same sand and everything else that's used for any house, when it's used for a temple, right? The temple, when we pass by a temple, we offer our respects out of gratitude, out of reverence, because Krishna is inside that temple, or Vishnu is inside the temple, or Lord Shiva is inside the temple, whoever. The point is, it's given that reverence because although materialistic, it has been spiritualized as it is in that spiritual platform. Now, misconception. Also, I should be clear. One can say, so animal sacrifice can be spiritualized. No. So when you break one of the 4 pillars of dharma, that cannot be spiritualized, right? What are the 4 pillars of dharma? Who remembers? Great souls.
No illicit relations, no intoxication.
Those are not the pillars of dharma. Those are what you do to support the pillar of dharma.
Purity, truth.
Truth is one. Sure. Okay, someone else? Another pillar of dharma, please. There's truth.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Krishna. No? Next one.
It's truth. Cleanliness.
Cleanliness. Mercy.
Austerity.
Austerity. These are the 4 pillars of dharma, right? This is on which dharma stands. In Kali Yuga, it is said 3 of them are broken and 1 is kind of tottering. That is truth. Truth is tottering. Mercy, broken. Slaughterhouses. Austerity, broken. Most people don't even care about tapasya, austerity, anything to do with difficulties. Spiritual austerities, of course. Cleanliness, whether the mind or the body. People have dirty thoughts, people have, are in dirty places and dirty consciousness. So most of the things, not saying everybody, But in Kali Yuga, it is said 3 of the pillars are broken. 1 is tottering, and that is truthfulness. Still, some people, without truth, we cannot survive. In the business community, there is a contract, there is truth that generally is upheld. Of course, if people go to court, if that's not upheld, but generally speaking, truth is supposed to be in Kali Yuga. Although cracked and tottering, it is there. Now, connected to that, there are the no meat eating, the no illicit sex, intoxication, gambling, and all that, right? So these are the 4 pillars of dharma. So if you're breaking a pillar of dharma, that cannot be spiritualized. You cannot say killing an animal and this is for spiritual purposes. No. That is purely for one's gratification of one's lusty desires. One generally cuts a goat and offers it to goddess Kali. I'll give you this, so you give me that, and all that business exchange that's happening. There is nothing spiritual about it. It is absolutely materialistic. And feel free to ask me and debate with me. I'll be happy to. All right.
Prabhuji, then like Ashwamedha Yagyas and like Gomedha Yagyas used to happen, right? And that used to happen for spiritual purposes.
Correct. No, not spiritual purposes, material purposes.
Oh, so they are used for material purposes,
of course,
right?
The kings wanted to dominance over the lands. So wherever the horse goes by and that area's kingdom or king accepts that horse, that means he is taking acceptance that you're the Samrat, you're the ruler of the planet, and I accept your superiority. If they don't accept the fight, they can kill the horse. And then the Samrat would have to send the army and fight and subdue them or get subdued by them. So it's purely for materialistic purposes. Now, the difference is, even the materialistic purposes, the Brahmanas had the ability to give the horse or the cow a new body. The Gomedha, the Ashwamedha Yagyas, the horses would get a new body. They wouldn't come out baked and charred. Right? That was their power. We don't have that. So even for materialistic reasons, we should not be killing innocent animals. That is not recommended in Kali Yuga. Unfortunately, people do that. Does it answer your question, Prayash?
Yeah, Prabhuji. Yeah.
Anybody has any other questions on this kind of sticky topic?
Hare
Yes,
Krishna,
Preeti Mataji.
Prabhuji.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I have a doubt, like in most of the temples, there are kind of rituals like for making something happen, we have to do some offering, like giving this much of our own weight of bananas or sugars or like geese or other kind of offerings for Krishna, or even in temple Guruvayur. It's Guruvayur, it's a temple in South India. Yeah. So actually, very, very, we feel that much of calm and that much happiness there. But the thing is that all these offerings are there. So recently, even my relative told me, like, okay, you have this much of trouble, so you please offer this to Krishna so that all these things will be changed. But I am not able to digest all this kind of customs happening. So what's the thought in this related to what we are discussing now?
So for materialistic people, that is what they do, right? This business. I give you this and you give me this. It's exchange of business and it ends there. In Bhakti, Krishna, all he wants is a heart. And he takes care of everything. Material problems, spiritual problems, everything is in his hands. We don't ask for anything else. We say, Krishna, I'm yours. What can I give you? Everything is yours anyway. How much grains, how much gold, how much diamonds, how much what can I give you? There's nothing I can give you because you're the owner of everything. So I give myself to you. I surrender myself to you. And you can take care of me if you so desire, or you can not take care of me if you so desire. But I'm in your hands. That's a devotee's prayer. But in other cases, if somebody is giving their weight's worth or whatever else, Guruvayur temple or Tirupati or wherever, sure, that's nice. It's better than not giving anything, right? It's better than giving to a beggar who might be using that money to smoke bidi, right? So there is benefit, no doubt about it. But is it the highest level of benefit? Not necessarily. And Krishna doesn't need anybody's money. Krishna is the richest man in creation. He owns everything. So he doesn't need money. What he wants is a heart. That's what it is. Pinky Mati, does it answer your question? You're muted.
Yes. Now it's clear. Thank you.
Shupradev, you want to ask something? You're muted. I cannot hear you. You're muted. Huh.
Later on, I will ask something.
Sure. All right. Sounds good. Okay. Anything in the chat section? Dheeraj Tiwari. But when people gave their crop to God in the fire as in gratitude, but how sacrifice goat and cow to God is not, and not supporting it out of curiosity. Giving your crop to God, first of all, it's part of it. You're giving plants and giving animals that are sentient beings that have a sensation of pain. Is it the same thing? Does it make sense? Number one. Number two, in the scriptures, in Bhagavad Gita, what does Krishna say? What to offer? Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prayachati. They give me patra, little leaf, pushpa, little flower, phalam, little fruit, toyam, water. You give me this with little bhakti. I accept it. I'm totally happy. He doesn't say, go find a goat, kill that goat when it's screaming, cut off its neck, and destroy its life and give me blood. That's not what Krishna is saying. So either God is not asking for it, neither it is a sane thing to do, to hurt a living being. So why do it? If you want to ask further, feel free to unmute your mic and ask Dheeraj. Okay, if not, got my answer. Okay, good. Thank you. Happy to hear. The cosmic manifestation has no power to act unless it is moved by superior energy and the living entity. Energies are always controlled by the energetic. Therefore, the living entities are always controlled by the Lord, and they have no independent existence. They are never equally powerful or unintelligent. They are never equally powerful as unintelligent men think. The distinction between living entity and the Lord is described in Srimad Bhagavatam as follows. Before I get there, one thing to note here, very important statement was made, that is that matter and spirit governs matter. Matter doesn't govern intelligence, or doesn't govern spirit. So for example, last time we discussed three kinds of Vishnu: Mahavishnu, Karnadaksha Vishnu, and Garvadaksha Vishnu, right? So every universe, just like our body, has a soul and there is super soul, Atma and Paramatma, right? Atma is there experiencing life. Paramatma is making things happen so we can experience life, right? Heart is beating, food is getting digested, breathing is working, all involuntary motions, our memory, matta smriti jnana, our memory, our knowledge, our intelligence, our forgetfulness, those are working. We're processing all the information. Supercomputer. Paramatma is managing all of that so we can enjoy life. Similarly, in the universe, there are planets that are running around, right? In perfect sync. Little change here and there, God forbid, everything will come to a crashing halt, right? The sun is in perfect distance. All the asteroids are getting attracted to Jupiter, so they don't come and crash on us. The moon is not crashing on us. Everything, all these massive giant balls, totally floating beautifully, right? In perfect time, we're getting our weathers, we're getting everything in time. Who's controlling all this? It's not just happening like that by chance. Vishnu. So that's why every universe has a Vishnu who's maintaining, who's the soul of the universe, who's maintaining all of these planetary systems. And this is only one solar system that we know of. There are 14 planetary systems, all of them maintained by Vishnu. That's why Krishna says that Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. All the lokas, I am the Maheshwaram. Maha Ishwara, I'm the supreme controller of all the lokas. Because as Vishnu is controlling all of them, all their movements and everything else, so they don't crash into each other, right? But annihilation happens. All of these are burned down at the end of Lord Brahma's life. 311 trillion years over, then they're all burned down by Anantasesh, the Nag on which Lord Vishnu is lying down. Anantasesh burns out everything. Annihilation happens, again creation happens, right? So there's a process to it. And it is run by a conscious, intelligent being. So in the Western world, where the Vedic culture is not as much prevalent, they come up with two ideas. One is the evolutionary concept. The other is the intelligent design. So the evolutionary idea is there was a bang, Big Bang Theory. There was a bang that nobody did. Somehow it just happened on its own. There was no matter. Suddenly matter manifested. And boom, 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 this explosion happened. And from explosion, all these different things came out. And they were little, massive planets. They were hot, and then they cooled down and they become round in shape. And gravity happened, and da-da-da-da, and millions and millions of years of that. And then matter interacted with matter interacted with matter. And suddenly, there was life. Boom. And from protozoa to metazoas to amphibians to reptiles to mammals, we have come from that. That's the idea of godless idea, that there's no creationism, there is no God. It was just random explosion happened, and from there, after millions of years, there was random interconnecting of chemicals. And I might be getting some of the details wrong, but the point is that's a basic concept. Then there is a second theory, which is intelligent design, where they don't accept a so-called God as a person, but there is intelligence that is there, that is governing the universe. There is intelligence that is there, that is governing every cell. Imagine a cell, a human cell. I recently got vaccinated, and I was researching on the COVID vaccines, which one to take. And I was looking at the AstraZeneca vaccine, which is COVID Shield, and how it works. It's quite interesting, right? So what they're doing is the COVID vaccine, just, giving you a little, it has those spikes. We all know about those spikes, right? Those are the proteins. So what the COVID Shield vaccine does is it takes an influenza virus and covers it with those kinds of proteins. So it looks like a COVID vaccine, COVID-19 virus. So it's dressed up like that. So when the cells see that the antigens, they have to create antigens. So how do they know? Now they see, okay, this is how you're designed. Okay, so I need to create antigens that will come and exactly sit on your spikes with the exact same shape. And based on that, the body starts creating antigens. And that goes and attacks the virus and covers it and captures it and eats it up, right? Again, I might be getting wrong in the technicalities, but get the point. That's the essence of it. That's a complex system. The Pfizer system is even more complex. What do? They don't even insert an influenza thing. They're basically taking the RNA data that allows you to create that protein that creates that covering on these spikes. So it's just transmitting the protein to your cell, where the cell is able to read that protein. One cell, which you cannot even see with your eyes, right? It's in a microscope you have to take. That cell is reading that protein and creating these antigens so that it can sit on the COVID-19 virus as soon as it enters the body. Now, this is just one example of how complex systems work. Think about the kidney, reverse osmosis and whatnot. I can go on. I love these stuff, although I never became a doctor because I cannot see blood. But the point is, the complexities that happen within each cell and the complexities that happen within the universe, the black holes and the antimatter and all of the things you talk about in universe expanding, which is Mahavishnu breathing, by the way. All of these things are so complex. There is intelligent design. According to one concept, Western concept, there's intelligent design that has intelligence that is maintaining the cell as well as the universe, as well as every part of creation. It's not random. There is some form of intelligence that is governing these things. And the creationist idea is obviously that, what we believe in and what the Christians and every other religion believes in is that from God, these things have come into being. Now, let's take the Vedic standard as the standard, because we are all students of Vedic knowledge. And it's coming from God's perspective, right? All of these are observations, just like somebody observing chess. and figuring out the rules of the game, versus if somebody who's the creator of chess can tell you that these are the rules of the game, right? So similarly, science is observing and coming to conclusions, which might or might not be true, might or might not be complete, rather than saying true or untrue. Now let's talk about the Vedas. What's happening from the Vedic perspective? So the Big Bang is also the Vedic idea, but it's not random. Difference is there was somebody who hit the plunger. Just like when you demolish a house, right? Somebody goes on the dynamite and then the house gets demolished and there's the explosion. Somebody has to, some conscious being has to hit the button, and then matter reacts. Only a superior para prakriti rules over apara prakriti. On its own, matter cannot handle anything. Matter doesn't do anything on its own. It is always superior energy that enables inferior energy to work. So in the Vedic context, it's Vishnu, Mahavishnu, who manifests these universes. And in that universe, there's the Mahatattva. When the Big Bang Theory happens, they also talk about the Mahatattva in their own way. They call it the ambrogenous soup, right? Ambrogenous soup. So it's Mahatattva, according to us, where all the elements are in its completely mixed up form. And slowly they separate it out and they become planets and whatnot. In our case, what do we say? It separates into first the modes of nature, the subtlest of things, then the ego, then fire, air, ether, earth, and all of that. Sorry, I didn't do it correctly, but from subtle to gross, the Mahatattva separates. Oh, sorry. First there is sound. My bad. Om, the sound vibration. The sound agitates the Mahatattva, and from that, slowly, the material elements, they disintegrate. Ego, the mind, intelligence, then there is space, there is fire, air, ether, etc., etc. And then the three modes of nature combine with these elements, and different forms of things are created, different elements are created, right? Etc. Now, then from the elements that are created, then, all these planets and wonderful things, I can go on, details, but keeping it short, eventually, Durga Devi, who's impregnated with the jivas, right? So Mahavishnu looks at Durga Devi, that glance, through that glance, Mahavishnu is impregnating her with the jivas that are in Shushupti stage, which means they're in sleeping stage. So that glance is called Shambhu, or Lord Shiva. And that's why the Shiva Linga looks like that. It is a male part and the female part that is uniting. So the upper part is Lord Shiva, the Shiva Linga, and the lower part is Devi, or Durga Devi. And that's where the transfer is happening. So the jivas get transferred to Durga Devi. Durga Devi then starts the whole Bhumandala, the creations and everything else that we know of. Lord Brahma starts from Lord Brahma, all the other living entities and everything. All the 8.4 million species of life are created. Not just Lord Brahma creates the Prajapatis and the Yakshas and all these other personalities, and the Prajapati especially, they progenate the entire universe and all the planetary systems. And then based on our karma, we work, we get higher bodies, lower planets, upper planets. What we go around starts from there on. Okay. I hope I have not confused the hell out of all of you, but the point of explaining all of this was to help you understand that there is superior nature, there is spiritual energy that controls material energy. So no matter how much artificial intelligence and machine learning and all the wonderful things that's there, they can never overpower conscious beings like us, no matter what the Hollywood movies show us. Because we are always more superior to matter, and we have to activate. Now, of course, you can say there is, deep learning, where the software is learning itself and it's going into, complex modes where it can teach itself and it can evolve and become something that we cannot even understand. True that. But still, somebody started it. Somebody got the code started, and then the evolution is happening. So it's always started by a spiritual entity, a superior energy. So we are always superior to matter. No matter how complex we create, we can never create something that is more than us. We can always create something that's lower than us. So we cannot create God, for example, right? We can always create something that's lower than us. Demigods can create us because they're higher than us. The higher body, the demigods can create lower bodies, etc. So that's always the given aspect. Okay. The cosmic manifestation has no power to act unless it is moved by superior energy, the living entity. Energies are always controlled by the energetic, and therefore the living entities are always controlled by the Lord. They have no independent existence, and they are never equally powerful as unintelligent men think. Can the mic be muted? Whoever is. Thank you. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said, Aparimita dhruvastanu prito yadi sarvagatas tarhina shashyateti niyamo dhruva netaratha ajani cha yan mayam tad avimuchya niyantra bhavet samam anujanatan yad amatam mata dushta daya. O Supreme Eternal, if the embodied living entities were eternal and all-pervading like you, then they would not be under your control. But if the living entities are accepted as minute energies of your lordship, then they are at once subject to your supreme control. Therefore, real liberation entails surrender by the living entities to your control, and that surrender will make them happy. In that constitutional position, only can they be controllers. Therefore, men with limited knowledge who advocate the monistic theory that God and the living entities are equal in all respects are actually guided by a faulty and polluted opinion. What does that mean? This basically means, it is being spoken that when one comes under your control, then one is happy. When we constantly fight with God, right? Like Ravana or Kamsa. Kamsa was constant, even though he was so powerful as a king, he was constantly in fear. He was more Krishna conscious than most of us, because he was always seeing Krishna everywhere. Oh my God, is he going to come kill me? Is he going to kill me? Is he going to kill me? He was seeing Krishna everywhere. In the water, he was seeing Krishna. He was in the window, he was seeing Krishna. He was always scared of Krishna. Hiranyakashipu, another demon, always scared of Krishna. These personalities were always like, in anxiety. So when you're not under the control of the Lord, when you're dependent on the Lord, you're in anxiety. You look at Arjun, right? This is a story from the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Next day is a great war, and Arjun is just chilling out, literally chilling with his friends and talking and laughing. Krishna is observing. Arjun is not scared. He's like, Arjun, how come you're not worried about tomorrow? He's like, why should I worry? It's your worry, isn't it? I'm depending on you. You're my master. You're my savior. You'll take care of me. I know that. So I'm not worried. Krishna is like, that's nice, right? So that's the mood of the devotee. The devotee is never worried. Krishna will take care. And if he doesn't take care, that's also his choice. And I'm protected either way. Whether he decides to take care of me this way, or he decides to take care of me that way. If it is lovey-dovey love, or if it is tough love, both love only. When you're under the shelter of Krishna, you're not worried. When you're fighting with Krishna, trying to be God, trying to be controller, trying to be the master of the universe, that's where things go wrong. And that's what's happening, right? All the wars we see between countries. I have so many nuclear arms. Oh, I have so many nuclear arms. Oh, I have this and I have that and I have this. Where is it leading to? People are dying. One little tiny coronavirus killing millions and millions of people. So the point is, there is no winning when you are defying the control of God. It's like a street dog versus a dog in the house. The street dog has to fight for every morsel of food. There's so many other dogs that just fight and try to get the food. Just like people have to fight to get the investment, fight to get that job, fight to get that admission, fight to get anything in life. You have to constantly fight like a dog. But one who is a devotee of Krishna, guess what? The dogs that is owned by the owner sleeps in a beautiful bed, sometimes the master's bed, eats the food that the master eats, drives the car that the master drives, lives a lavish life. It's not a dog's life. It's almost a human life, right? Why? Because it has shelter. So when we have shelter, we live just like Krishna. Krishna eats whatever he eats, we eat. Mahaprasadam, Rajbhog, right? We are dancing and singing and having fun. People are like, how come you guys are so happy, right? One girl was deciding to commit suicide. He saw the devotees and was like, these guys are happy. I thought there's no happiness in this world. If they're happy, there must be happiness somewhere. Let me find out. She learned and she became a devotee and she became happy. Instead of committing suicide, she's a happy person, happily married and living in San Francisco. So the point is, that's the beauty of Krishna consciousness, where we voluntarily accept Krishna's protection, and thereby we are protected and we are tension-free. We live a tension-free life. Otherwise, it's a dog's life, unfortunately. You can be a private jet and you're worrying, oh my God, I'm so much debt. Oh my God, I have so many competitors. What if that person just, does that and I am totally off? Happens, right? All the time in business. Somebody comes with a better product and you boom, you're dead. Nokia was ruling for so long and they're 90% market share of cell phones. Suddenly, Steve Jobs innovated and Apple had the iPhone, and before you know, in a matter of a couple of years, Nokia was gone, literally gone, right? Happens all the time. Billionaires become paupers. So they're always scared of losing, right? But when you're in Krishna consciousness, you're like, whether I lose it, whether I gain it, Krishna will always take care of me in whatever situation it is. So I'm not worried. That doesn't mean you become complacent. You give your 100%, but the worry isn't there. The tension is not there because you have faith in your father, right? Just like when your father, you're a kid, I'm sure most of your parents probably lifted you up and threw you in the air and caught you. You're not scared because your parents going to catch you. But in other cases, right, stranger comes, you're like, oh, don't touch me. Baby starts crying. Why? They don't trust others. When there's faith, when there's trust in Krishna, devotees are absolutely bold. Abhay, right? That's why Prabhupada's name is Abhay Charanaravinda, because he's fearless, because Charanaravinda, he's at the lotus feet of Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's his Abhay. He's sheltered by the Lord. There is some chat here. What about the existence of aliens explained in Bhagavad Gita? They exist. What about the terrestrial beings? Yes, of course they exist. Aliens exist. It's not a unknown thing for us. That's why History Channel always shows the Vedic scriptures talking about spaceships and people coming from other planets and all that. Please forgive me. Sorry about that. Okay. Where was I? What was I saying?
Extraterrestrials.
Extraterrestrials. So they're absolutely being talked about. Spaceships, Vimana. So there's a whole Vimana Shastra about spaceships and airplanes and everything else that was there during the Vedic period. And we always see, space travel. Even Srila Prabhupada wrote the book Journey to Other Planets, where it's described in details. If you want to travel to other planets, how you can do that without a spaceship. So the details are there. It's science. It's not unknown to us. But yes, they don't look like those antennas and the black eyes and things that Hollywood shows us. There are different bodies for different planetary systems. There are different oceans that are described. Like we have saltwater ocean here. There are oceans that are made of alcohol, for those of you like it. There are oceans made of all kinds of things I'm going to talk about in public. And there are personalities also, like sun planet. Here in Earth planet, in earth, water, fire, air, ether, the body is majorly made of earth, right? Less air, less on the fire side. Whereas on the sun planet, the bodies are majorly made up of fire, less earth, because it'll get charred, right? So moon planet, right? There are subtle bodies that are majorly mind, intelligence, ego. You cannot see them necessarily, right? They're subtle. So devatas have subtle bodies, right? You have to have their kind of eyes to see those forms. They're very, very beautiful. Don't get me wrong. Menaka, Urvashi, all these wonderful women, they're extremely beautiful. But they cannot be seen through these eyes. They're having subtle forms. So just like ghosts, we cannot see ghosts, but ghosts exist. So like that, there are different forms of bodies. There are 8.4 million species. That means there are 8.4 million kinds of bodies. 400,000 of them are just human variations, right? How many do we know here? Only a few in Earth planet, but there are many more down there, many more up there, right? So when you see those demons with horns and everything, they exist, right? So the yakshas, the very beautiful people out there, they're called the Gandharvas. They can sing very beautifully. They look very beautiful. They're kind of like the models of the universe. The Urvashis and the Menakas, the women, they're extremely beautiful and whatnot. So Brahma's planet, they're made up of intelligence. Try to understand that. How can your body be made up of intelligence? But that's what Brahma's body is made up of intelligence. Do not try to ask me any questions on this. I will not be able to answer that. But yeah, that's what the scriptures say, and that's how they're built. So it is very variegated. You cannot go with telescopes and see, I went to moon, there is nobody there. Yeah, you won't see it because the bodies are different. You can see the sun, but you cannot see Surya Narayan. They're different. We cannot see with these eyes. And that's why in chapter 11, when you see Lord Krishna manifests his Vishwarup form, he gives Arjun a pair of eyes that are divine eyes. It's like, Arjun, you cannot see me through those. The Vishwarup form is not possible to be seen through these material eyes. As a result, I'm going to give you divine eyes so you can see this form. Just like with these eyes, we cannot see anything beyond the Vibgyor range. But if you have an X-ray machine, that can see, we cannot see X-rays, but X-ray has, it's certain machines can capture it, right? There is ultraviolet, it can be captured. We cannot see it. So our eyes are limited, our ears are limited. That doesn't mean that sound waves or light waves are limited. There's a lot more than that, and even more than what we know. So understand that, and then try to understand what it means to be an alien. For example, Prabhupada is to call Narad Muni the transcendental spaceman, because Narad Muni is so devoted to Krishna that he is almost as free as Krishna. So he doesn't only do interspace travel, he can do inter-universe travel. He can even go to the spiritual world, Vaikuntha, and come back, no problem. That's Narad Muni, ultimate space traveler. Want to be like Narad Muni? Sure, become like him. He's actually one of our acharyas. We are very fortunate to be in the line of Narad Muni. So Lord Brahma's son is Narad Muni. So Lord Brahma speaks to Narada, Narada speaks to Vyasa, like that. It comes down through the disciplic succession. Vyasadeva is the one who compiled the Vedic literatures. He was spoken to all this knowledge by Narad Muni himself. In TV serials, they show Narad Muni as a funny comedian. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Or I should say, fortunately, that's not the case. Narad Muni is not a comedian. He's extremely brilliant, effulgent personality who's one of the gurus in our disciplic succession, Guru Shishya Parampara. Extremely powerful, extremely intelligent, extremely well versed in scriptures, and extremely devoted to the personality of Godhead. He's nothing like what you see with funny hair, dangling there, and stupid, statements. That's not Narad Muni. He's a very, very brilliant personality. We are brainwashed with stupidity. It's just unbelievable. It's like an attack on our faith. And that's what people know. Nobody reads the scriptures, right? So nobody knows. They're like, oh, okay, that's what our mythology looks like. Again, that word mythology should never be used. It means mithya. We say history. It's history. Mahabharata is history. Ramayana is history. It's all there. All those places are there. Archaeological proof is there, right? But these people, the British started this, trying to just abolish any concept of our past glories. Anyway, I'm not getting into the whole Hinduism debate. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm here for. But just putting it out there. The Supreme Lord Krishna is the only controller, and all living entities are controlled by him. That's what means Purusha and Prakriti. You must have heard the word Purusha and Prakriti, that only there is one Purusha, everybody else is Prakriti. Now we generally think Purusha Prakriti means male and female. In Vedic context, Purusha Prakriti means predominated, the controller, and the controlled. Krishna is the only controller. Everybody else is controlled, including the demigods. Everybody is controlled. There's only one controller. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. There's only one Govinda. There's only one controller, supreme controller. We are all controllers. Don't get me wrong. You're controlling your business. You're controlling your family. You're controlling a lot of small things. But the supreme controller is one. And we are all being controlled. So that needs to be very, very clear. While exploiting the gross and subtle inferior energy, the superior energy forgets his real spiritual mind and intelligence. This forgetfulness is due to the influence of matter upon the living entity. So we forget that we are actually higher energy. As a result, we start thinking we are also matter. I am this body. Oh, when I die, that's it, that's the end. When somebody dies, we cry. Why? Because that's the end. So we start thinking in contact with matter, because we can only see matter around us. We cannot see spirit. So we start thinking we are also matter. And we forget that we are actually higher beings. We are higher energy, and we are capable of doing much more than we are doing right now, dealing with only matter. So when we start delving in spiritual life, guess what? The Atma is coming in contact with Paramatma, or Supreme Soul. As a result, we unlock the hidden potential that is within us to do far more than what we are doing today. Right? Today, what we are able to do, we're able to manipulate matter a little bit here and there and get some results out of it. Some money, some food, some car, some nice house, some sense gratification. But there is so much more we can do when we have spiritual energy, when we're connected with this spiritual energy. We can do so much more, not just spiritually, but materially also, because spirit is above matter. So when we are spiritually connected, we can do spiritual things as well as material things, like a Daksha. Daksha means expert. Right? We have expertise in both material and spiritual hemisphere. But when the living entity influence. But when the living entity becomes free from the influence of illusory material energy, he attains the stage called mukti, or liberation. The false ego, under the influence of material illusion, thinks I am matter and material acquisitions are mine. His actual position is realized when he's liberated from the material idea. So liberation means not like you become ghost. Liberation means liberation from the conception that I am matter, I am this body. And understanding I am a spiritual being, part and parcel of Krishna. And that means acting on that platform as a spiritual being, not acting as a matter. As a matter, what is it? Indriya Tripti. All we know happiness comes from Indriya Tripti. Sense gratification. I have 5 senses, let's enjoy as much as possible. And in the process of trying to enjoy, we are struggling very, very hard. Let me work very hard so I can get that money, so I can afford that car, and then I can have that enjoyment, that stereo system, or that new technology, or the driverless, or whatever it is. Right? But to get to that point, I have to work very, very hard, etc., etc. So because we think matter, we are only aware of material happiness, but there is more than that. And when we are liberated, then we start acting in our nature as spirit soul, and thereby unlocking the spiritual potential, spiritual happiness, spiritual activities, and spiritual outlook on life. Right? That's so one who can. So we are, all of us have somewhat of that. So we are somewhat liberated. Let's understand that we are somewhat liberated. Right? Our liberation process already started. It is not like one day you are liberated, or if you die to be liberated. You can be in this body and be completely liberated. Liberated from lust, greed, envy, pride, illusion. Liberated from the conception that I am this body. Liberated from the conception I and mine. Right? Aham mameti. Aham, I, mameti, mine. I am so-and-so, and my body, my relatives, my country, my religion, my species. right? Liberation from this concept. What does the liberation look like? It looks like every living entity, they're part and parcel of God. So I don't see a distinction as such. I don't see them as somebody else I should hate. I don't see them as different, so I should hate. I'm better, they're worse. All of these goes away. You respect all life, whether it's a squirrel or whether it's Hanuman. You know the story of Squirrel and Hanuman by Lord Ramachandra? I'll tell it anyway because it's nice to hear Lord Ram's glories, right? So the bridge was being built from India to Sri Lanka, and all the living entity, all the different Vanaras and everybody, according to their strength, were picking up stones and writing Lord Ram's name and throwing it in the water, and the stones were floating. So Hanuman, being strong, being Hanuman, he was carrying mountains and writing Lord Ram's name and throwing them in the water. So massive, gigantic, pieces of stone. And there was a little squirrel who was taking some dust and was throwing that in the water, right? And Hanuman said, can you get out of the way? You're not doing anything useful anyway, and you're coming in my way, and I'm doing so much work. And Lord Ramachandra said, stop immediately, pause all this work. And he told Ram, he said, what you are doing is to your capacity. What this squirrel is doing is to his capacity. And to me, both of you, I see equal. You've been given that capability to throw mountains, and he's given the capability to throw his dust. And he's doing his best, you're doing your best. So in my eyes, I don't see a distinction. So do not ever try to look down upon other living entities like that. So when that's what kind of consciousness we get when we're liberated. We don't look down upon any service. We don't look down upon any person because they look bad, or they're not as rich, or they're not a social background. We don't do that, right? That's a liberation. That's a saint, a liberated. Why do we look at a sannyasi and pay our respects? Because they're in that liberated stage. We're paying respects to that that stage, so we can also attain that stage. What you appreciate is what you get, right? You appreciate certain qualities in certain people, you acquire those qualities thereby. You talk about somebody's disqualifications, you acquire that also, bad habits also. All right. Therefore, one may conclude that the Gita confirms the living entity to be only one of the multiple energies of Krishna. And when the energy is freed from material contamination, it becomes fully Krishna conscious or liberated. Okay. Questions?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead, Prabhu.
Yeah. See, when you say spirit governs matter, okay, I want to also see where does this sattva, raja, tamas come in. So it is the influence of those which make us do what we do. So
who's behind sattva, raja, tama?
Come again?
Who's behind sattva, raja, tama?
Other than Krishna, everyone is under the influence of.
True, but Durga Devi has been empowered to be behind those three modes of nature. So her Trishul has three prongs.
Yeah.
That's what she's doing, right? So okay. She's the one who's governing. She is Maya Devi. So Maya Devi is using her three assistants to influence us. So there's a conscious being, and behind Maya Devi is Krishna. So there's a conscious being behind everything that has happened.
Agree. Thank you.
Sure. Yogesh Prabhu?
Prabhu, is there something beyond moksha or liberation that we should attain, or
yes,
is moksha the ultimate
moksha,
goal?
like you learned? Oh, you probably are not in that class. So moksha is basic. For us devotees, we don't even care about moksha. Right? It is said for a devotee of Krishna or a bhakti yogi, moksha is standing with folded palms outside their door. Why? Because we are aiming for something much higher, and that is service to Krishna. So when there is service to Krishna, then moksha is just a byproduct. You already get moksha. The beginning, in fact, it is said, as you start bhakti process, your liberation process starts automatically. The initial stage is only to get you out of the material problems that you face. Many of you might have experienced this. As you've come to Krishna consciousness, a lot of the big material problems start to subdue, right? They go down. As your Krishna consciousness grows, it subdues. So it's important to understand that. So yes, liberation is the basic step. And what we are going for is Krishna Prem. That is loving service to Lord Krishna.
Okay, that makes it clear. Thank you.
Sure. What are the Trishul Durga Devi is killing Asura? So how can she influence the three things, Satya, Rajatama? Durga Devi is killing Asura. So that is one pastime that we in Durga Puja, we just glorify that pastime. That's not happening for eternal, forever. Her eternal service is, she's Maya Devi. She keeps the living entity under illusion, where we think we are powerful, where we think we are this body, where we think all the materialistic things. So that's her job description. Killing Mahishasur was just a one-time thing. That's not what she does every day, right? So that's a symbolic aspect of. So the three prongs of Trishul is not Sattva, Raja, Tama. The three prongs of Trishul is Adi Daivik Klesha, Adi Bhautik Klesha, and Adhyatmik Klesha, the three miseries, right? Miseries due to one's own mind and body, miseries due to other living entities, and miseries caused by natural calamities, demigods rather. So that's her, that's what the Trishul represents. And that's how Maya Devi is constantly putting us in trouble. So hopefully one point will be like, that hurts. Oh my God, is there some liberation from this painful situation? Krishna is like, yes, there is. Here is the Bhagavad Gita, right? So when we ask the question, is there an alternative? Krishna gives the answer. Unless we ask, we don't get the answer.
Prabhu, I have another question.
Mhm.
So the 14 lokas, that is 7 lokas up top, 7 lokas down below, they are encapsulated into an anda, is what I understood. Does that mean that there are several andas, or across these 17 lokas there are several?
No, this universe is Brahmanda, right? The anda, Brahmanda. So it's just a spherical ball, this universe. And then, of course, there are the lokas. They're also spherical in shape. But the Brahmanda is one Brahmanda. And there's many Brahmandas, millions and millions and millions of Brahmandas that come out of the pores of Lord. I might be, you know what? I'll have to check that and get back to you. I might be going wrong somewhere.
Okay, Prabhu.
Let me confirm and get back to you on that. Because where I'm getting confused is Brahmanda the entire material creation? Or is it? Okay, sorry, I got it. So there is Devi Dham, the entire material creation. So that is the Brahmanda, that is the X-shaped. Then above that is Shivlok or Kailash. Above that, there is Brahma Jyotir. Above that, there is Vaikuntha. Right. So yes, this entire thing is Brahmanda. And within Brahmanda, there are many, many universes that are there. Within every universe, there are many, many planets and planetary systems that are there. 5th canto Srimad Bhagavatam, if you want more details about it. Go read it.
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Under your guidance.
I'm way too unqualified to talk about 5th canto. 5th canto is mind-boggling. The way it talks about these things and details. I mean, last class only everybody was complaining that, this was too complex, too technical. 5th canto will blow your mind. So yeah. Prabhupada is your guide there. Anyway, anything else? Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Hare Krishna, everyone. Have a good night.
Hare Krishna.